Hey everybody, welcome to BrickVault. Today in front of us is every single LEGO Star Wars set for the January 1st, 2020 Winter Wave. That is 11 sets in total. These are their names, their set numbers, the prices, the parts, and their part-to-price ratios, which aren't really actually that important. Before I get into all of this, I do want to say thank you to the LEGO group for sending these sets over to us to do a review. I'm going to be going through an entire breakdown of what I think of everything at the end. I'll have a big final conclusion, and of course individual reviews for each of these sets. I've left timestamps in the description below, so if you want to skip around the video, feel free to do so. See the stuff that you're the most interested in, or you can watch it in one big run through. And I left in a couple of okay-ish segues between some of the sets. I'm going to be going from smallest set number to largest, which is basically smallest set to biggest set, kind of, and I'll be talking about everything, including exclusive figs, certain figs that I think will remain exclusive, other ones that probably won't, best sets for collectability later down the line, new pieces that have appeared for the first time, and also comparisons to some of the older versions of these sets, because some of these sets aren't like, you know, the Landspeeder, for example, there's been a bunch of them. I'm going to be doing some comparisons for some of the sets so you can see the differences between the old ones and the new ones. So hopefully this will be a pretty complete overview, and I certainly hope that you guys enjoy. So anyways, let's jump into the very first one. I think this is it. Alrighty, up first is the Resistance Y-Wing Microfighter, set number 75263, sells for $10 and it is 86 pieces. So that's pretty standard part count, pretty standard price for a Microfighter. And I would say this is actually a nice little set to get, because Zorii Bliss, the minifigure here, actually, let me get her onto the stand. She's a great looking minifigure, and she, up until this set, was pretty difficult to acquire. So it's nice that she comes out in a small $10 set, because the detailing for her prints on both the front and the back of the torso, as well as the legs, is very ornate. She doesn't have a face print or anything, and the helmet mold is really detailed. I love this back bit. It would be interesting if they revealed that she was like a Twi'lek or something underneath that helmet, just because of that interesting bulge in the back. But very cool fig, and she sits down pretty well into the Y-Wing Starfighter. It's kind of funny, her arms pop up and over those cheese wedge pieces just a little bit, which is a little bit unfortunate. It's not quite the best fit. You can kind of force her hands around, but you really are almost like starting to split the arms unnaturally away from the minifigure body. But either way, it's a great looking little build. You've got these little flick missiles. Whoa, that went really far once I connected. Yeah, and the build is fine. Nothing too crazy about the parts that are used. Nothing bad or good necessarily, I would say, that really pops out in any significant way. I'd say it's a pretty standard and not too bad of a build for a Resistance Y-Wing, which, by the way, was the original larger playset. That's where she came from. I think she is the pilot. By the way, the movie has not yet been released as of the making of this particular video, so who knows if she becomes... Okay, it doesn't matter. Let's jump into the next one. This is Kylo Ren's Shuttle, the Microfighter Kylo Ren Shuttle. So it's not a bad little build. They added posability to the wings, which is nice. I mean, it can really... I mean, they can go all the way... let's see, actually, how far can it go? Yeah, that's... So, yeah, plenty of posability for the wings, which is nice. I like that that ratcheted joint area can be manipulated pretty easily. There's a couple of little stud guns on either side, and then this is the Kylo Ren figure. Just like Zorii Bliss, he can only be found in the much larger version of the Kylo Ren Shuttle set that came out not too long ago, just in the last Star Wars wave. And what makes him unique is the crack, the red crack around his helmet. This is his facial expression. So he is the exact same version of Kylo that we got in that other set. It's just a cheaper and easier way to get him. I'm always curious, why do you think his helmet is cracked? I wonder if why doesn't he just get a new helmet, I should say? I know why it's cracked, but I just don't understand. With all the power and resources of the First Order, you'd think he would just get a new one. Anyways, yeah, nice print. There's the fig. And then I forgot to mention earlier, but this is set number 75264. It sells for $10. $15, and it is 72 parts. So once again, the part count, part to price ratio doesn't really matter for a set like this. All the Microfighter single build sets are always $10, and they're always around this size, so that makes sense. I just think it's a nice way to get Kylo Ren, this version of him at least, in a much smaller, much cheaper way. And alright, next up we have the T-16 Skyhopper versus the Bantha Microfighter set. This is a $20 set, 198 pieces, and of course the builds are a much larger brick-built Bantha. He's a little bit chibi, not too small actually compared to maybe a full-size Bantha, maybe only a little bit small. And then this is the chibi single-seater for the T-16, which is always a fun ship for me personally. And it's kind of interesting. Let's jump into the minifigs first. This is the pilot for the Skyhopper. Pretty interesting guy. Believe it or not, this is actually an exclusive print for the chest. Both the front and back is brand new compared to the last time we got this Skyhopper pilot, though the face and helmet are not. So he's got this great visor print for the front of his face and an open visor. Nice expressions, nice printing all around for the chin strap, and it's not a bad print also for the detailing that we have on the helmet as well. But the helmet and face are not exclusive, it's just the torso. So this guy's actually exclusive just to this set. He probably will remain so, my guess is, for a while. They do the T-16 surprisingly often, considering it's really not that well known of a ship amongst later Star Wars fans. And then, believe it or not, this is actually a new print for the chest as well, for the Tusken Raider. This same Tusken Raider came out in the Obi-Wan's Hut set from the same wave, so he's not exclusive to one set, but this is a new print. I believe the legs have been done on previous Tusken Raiders, though, before in the past. So I like that. There's a lot of different variation in color detailing, some tan, dark tan, and just a lot of different cloth layers and stuff for the belt. So not bad. The head mold is the same like it was before in the past. And then when looking at this all together on the Bantha, it's not bad, not bad. The seat here is made of those slightly new 1x3 jumper pieces in nougat, which I think is the first time we're getting those pieces in nougat for this set. You can see just a little bit of the Technic by the horns in blue, which I'm not a huge fan of. I like the shape of the mouth. It's very, very cartoony, which is kind of fun, and I think this is the first time, in fact, we're getting a real physical version of a Bantha in LEGO. There's a ton of different iterations of the Bantha when it comes to the Star Wars video games and stuff. So you can have that clipped onto the side if you like. There's a little bit of a rucksack or a pack or something. The head is posable. The tail can go up and down just a little bit. And you can see a handful of just tiny little colors poking around the edges. Poking around the edges just a little bit. What did I do? I took off his leg, didn't I? Oh yeah, this leg actually goes the other direction. Right, so it kind of looks like he's walking a little bit. So anyways, that's the Bantha. I'm pretty happy with the way this turned out. I know some people are kind of like iffy on the way he looks, but personally I think that's actually a pretty good build. And then this is the T-16. So let's get the pilot in here. He's pretty easy to sit down. Like all Microfighters, these are always much easier, much more fun, casual little chibi play sets. You can swoosh them around. You've got a couple of little stud guns on the back. This is clipped on by just one clip, believe it or not, for the wings, so they can break off somewhat easily. And yeah, there's a rather large base, which makes this thing easy to sit down before the wings start connecting to the ground and maybe getting pushed up and away. I like the little red highlight detailing. Here's the one little detail for the thruster, some Technic that connects the whole thing in the back end for the most part. It's a pretty easy, pretty basic build, like a lot of the Microfighter builds. I don't mean that in a bad way when I say basic. I mean it's just kind of fun and simple, and I know a lot of people really enjoy making their own micro versions of little micro sets just like this, because it doesn't take a huge amount of parts and you can have kind of a lot of fun with the design. So anyways, let's move on now to some of the battle packs. This is where I think the Star Wars Winter Wave really starts to take off in terms of quality when we get to the battle packs. This first one here is the Sith Trooper Battle Pack, set number 75266, 105 parts, and sells for $15 US. Pretty darn good build for the actual build part of the pack. Usually I feel like these are often throwaways, but this is definitely not. It's done in the style that's very similar to the First Order Snowspeeder, but it's got these sand blue highlights, and I think this is a really excellent little build. But first, of course, let's take a closer look at some of these figs. This first guy is the coolest of the newer figs that come out in this set. He is the Sith Jet Trooper, and really great prints there in the front that you can see. You have a nice little yellow symbol there, and then when I turn this in the back, there actually should be a single 1x1 tile in the back, but the set that we got didn't actually have any of those 1x1 tiles. There's a little print on it. See, this guy doesn't have it, and the set should actually have 3 because there should be 1 spare. That's what it looks like. You can see it there. So yeah, it's a detail. It kind of stinks that we didn't get him, but yes. Anyways, that piece, the jet piece, is new for this guy. The helmet mold is new for this guy. Guess what kind of expression he's got? Yep, standard Stormtrooper expression. And for the most part, I think he looks pretty darn good. I like the printing there. We've got these really subtle line details there on the front of his helmet, which is great. You can see that there once it focused. And the one thing I will say that is a slight detractor is the helmet doesn't stay on his head too easily. Not that easily, but all in all, let me actually just show you the back real quick. All in all, this is a really fun and interesting figure to get with the red and black armor. He's a really good looking dude. He's got a stud gun, just like all battle pack figures do nowadays. And now we are looking at the Sith Trooper. He's the more standard version of I guess the Sith now, not the First Order, even though he does have a First Order mold for a helmet. This isn't the first time we've gotten this particular type of Sith Trooper, but it's nice that we now get a cheaper version of this guy because he, I think before, just came out in the Kylo Ren Shuttle set, which is a pretty big, pretty expensive one. So that's great that we now get a standard Trooper in a much smaller, much cheaper, much easier to get set. And of course, just so you guys can see, yes, that is his facial expression. And last up here is a First Order officer. You know, it's not bad as a figure. The print for his back, the print for his front isn't bad. I like the little symbol on his hat. In retrospect or in any objective form, I wouldn't call him a bad fig, but for most people, they do like having more soldiers in their battle pack. It's pretty standard nowadays to get an officer, so I'm not surprised nor disappointed necessarily for getting this guy. But of course, most people definitely prefer to get maybe another Sith Trooper or some other type of trooper included instead of an officer. They did give him a little stock on the back of his stud gun to maybe look like he's more important or like he has extra firepower or something, but it doesn't necessarily fool me. Now, all that being said, I certainly think this officer has a place in this set, though, because there is a specific driver's seat there for him. So I think it kind of makes sense for him to be in the piloting or driver's seat as he rushes these troopers over into the battlefield. The general build here isn't anything, I would say, complex or special or even really that interesting, but it feels very complete. There's enough space to have all of these guys in here like this, which is kind of funny. It's a bit crowded, not gonna lie, but the build is easy. Like I said, those little helmets come off kind of easily for this set, but there he is. You can, yeah, even for the Sith Trooper helmet, the regular one. Yeah, so this is actually kind of a fun little build. I like this little divider in the center. It's not totally unsophisticated. It's actually put together decently well. It's just very, very simple, but I think it definitely serves a pretty darn good purpose, and I probably put it at one of the single best builds that we get coming from a battle pack set, because often these can be pretty filler. Now here it is. This is maybe the top set of the wave, or at least one of the most talked about and anticipated ones for sure. The Mandalorian Battle Pack, set number 75267, 102 parts, and it sells for $15 as well in the States. It comes with 4 totally unique figures that I have a very, very good feeling will remain unique after well after this set has been retired, so they'll probably just remain exclusive is my guess. All 4 are new chest prints. 2 of them have unique, actually 3 of them have unique leg prints. all unique helmets and stuff. It's great. This is really kind of what people look for in a battle pack. Mandalorians are cool. Everybody likes the new show. And the speeder itself isn't bad. It's not like some amazing build. I kind of like the Snowspeeder from the Sith battle pack a little bit better than this one, but this isn't bad. It's got another little land build, which I feel like is like whatever. This is not without its faults or its flaws, I would say, but super strong set all around. And let's take a closer look at each of these Mandalorians. Now I'm starting off with this Mandalorian warrior first. This color combination reminds me of Boba Fett that you saw from the Star Wars Holiday Special, at least just a little bit. Not that close necessarily, but I do like it all around. It looks like it's going to be a female face under there, but like you see for all of them, it's just black heads. None of the Mandalorians actually have any faces. I guess this is the way, blah, blah, blah. This is also a new color for the cape mold that the cape cut, I suppose. The Mandalorian figure has a slightly tapered off cape, which is nice, and now we get it in black for this figure. And then here is what the Mandalorian print on the back looks like. It's reflective silver, which is nice. You can even see some battle damage and some scruff on the fig, so that's great. Really complete looking warrior. And then this Mandalorian has some pretty interesting, colorful highlights as well. A nice bright green helmet with some dark green and some lighter green for the torso. And that print for the legs is actually the same as the print you saw for this, but now it's filled in. So it's filled in with tan, dark tan and stuff. And it looks just a little bit more complete for a figure. So I like this particular one, but maybe not quite as much as the last one I'm going to show you. Let me just show you the print on the back. This Mandalorian's armor is scraped up as well, but you can see some shiny undertones to some of the paint chipped away, which is pretty nice. And then this next warrior is done in primarily dark gray with a lot of really nice light blue accents all around, with some purple even on the helmet. The cape has been done in olive green, which is a new color for this cape as well, like the black one was before. And yeah, you can see some knee pads here. The Beskar knee pads are different sizes with different designs, so it looks like maybe one belonged to an old set and then one's a new one. You can't really tell exactly. And then maybe this blaster shot chipped away at an old paint job, and that's why you can see purple underneath. At least that's the impression that I'm getting. Let me show you guys the back. And once again, all of these prints are totally unique. They're not even just repeats of the same kind of design with just different color combinations, but really there is a slightly different aesthetic to every single one of the Mandalorian bits of armor, even all the way on the back when it's covered up by a cape. It's really cool. And then this final warrior here feels the most grounded. He doesn't have a lot of really bright, vibrant color accents. The lightest color is the nougat base for the helmet, but even then it kind of matches up pretty well with the different color browns that we have for the rest of the body. So you've got the reddish brown print that makes up the primary armor in the front, and the body is mostly dark brown. And this dark brown cape is a repeat from one of the guys in the set, and also a repeat for the Mandalorian himself from the actual Mandalorian set. So nice, a lot more scrape detailing. You can actually see that the silver is sort of part of the detailing, but even that's kind of scraped up a little bit. And yeah, let me show you the back. And this detailing here looks almost the same as one of the other Mandalorians, just the scraping detail I think is just in different places for this guy. So let me show you guys all of them together. And let me say that I think they put these four figures together in a really good way. The detailing is awesome. They don't lack too much in any particular way, I would say, in terms of character design, but that doesn't make them absolutely perfect. Of course, I'll forgive the stud guns. This is a battle pack. They're always supposed to come with stud guns. But I will say, Mandalorians come with jetpacks. The only Mandalorian you see without a jetpack is the actual Mandalorian from the show, and they all come with his style of cape, which I think is kind of interesting. I suppose there's maybe a whole group of them that don't have jetpacks, but so far we haven't actually seen that. So it would have been cool to see maybe two of these guys come with jetpacks. What I am going to do in the future is get a second one of these sets and buy some extra jetpacks. I'm going to brick build 4 unique weapons for each of these guys, which I think will make a lot more sense for these characters. And yeah, for the most part, I think it's great, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me that no Mandalorians would have jetpacks in a Mandalorian battle pack. Here is the speeder. It can only sit one guy. Not bad looking. A couple of stud shooters that don't necessarily stick out too much. It would have been cool if the colors matched up, if we got that in like dark gray or light gray or something for the actual stud gun itself, but not too much to complain about here. It's a relatively basic build, but what I think I kind of would have preferred in retrospect, aside from this weird like little land build, you can have one of the stud guns pushed into there and it kind of becomes a little turret where you're holding your ground. It doesn't feel that useful, really. What would have been kind of cool is maybe less pieces used for this speeder, this land build not existing, and having two smaller, lighter speeders that maybe two of the Mandalorians could ride, and the other two would have had jetpacks. That would have been like the ultimate set. For me, I think that would have been like the best set of the year if they had done that. Outside of my basic complaints, I still say this is one of the strongest sets of the wave for sure, just because we have 4 unique characters, and I still think they did a great job with each of these guys individually for detailing. And now here's where a lot of my praises are going to be cut down quite a bit. And I'll try not to be particularly biased because, once again, this is a set that is meant to be for much, much younger builders out there. It's a 4-and-up set, which has taken the place of what was previously called juniors. So clearly this isn't something that would really be piquing my interest as a custom builder and Star Wars enthusiast in general. We have the Snowspeeder. It's just simply called Snowspeeder set. It is set number 75268, and it comes with 91 parts, sells for $19.99, $20 US. So pretty expensive, but you know, there are some interesting pieces I'll get into. Specifically, the Snowspeeder is kind of an interesting individual piece here, but let's jump into the figs first. Wedge Antilles is back, and he's looking really good. Now, his pilot, this particular pilot minifigure, did appear in the Assault on Hoth set. He is not exclusive, but that's the last time he was really updated a long time ago. So it's nice to have a slightly cheaper way to get a Wedge Antilles minifigure because currently he sells for $12 minimum US if you wanted to get him new on Bricklink. So that's quite a pretty penny for such an iconic character in this updated form. Let me turn that light down. It might focus slightly better. But not a bad looking fig. Kind of too bad that the set itself is a little bit expensive, I think, just in terms of all the parts that you get. And then also, here is the second figure. We've got our Snowtrooper. This is the updated Snowtrooper. Came out in a couple of sets not too long ago. I like the molds for the helmet. The actual printing for the Kama instead of having a Kama is acceptable. I don't think the Kamas look particularly good, those cloth ones that used to come on those Snowtrooper figures in the past. I'm totally fine with having just some of the gray outline, just giving you the indication of a little bit of a Kama. Maybe in the future dual molded legs would be an interesting change up. I don't know if that would actually look better. But anyways, there's the figure. Now let's jump into the Snowspeeder. So this thing is really, really interesting. What we're looking at is this whole body. This is all one piece. This is all one piece. So it gets that perfect Snowspeeder shape, and it darn well should, because this piece was essentially, for what I can tell, was made specifically for this set, which is kind of amazing when you think about it. Let's see, we can get our Wedge Antilles fig in there. This is, I think, an updated control panel piece, that print, which is kind of crazy. Either it's new to this set or it's come out in a couple other sets and I haven't seen it yet. So I think it's pretty darn new, if I'm unmistaken. So that's kind of cool that you get a relatively new piece. It does appear one other time in this wave, and this is a printed piece. Not bad, not bad. It's kind of interesting. I don't know how useful this piece is going to be outside of the context for this set. I was actually thinking for like a much, much larger Y-wing cockpit, this could be kind of a good piece to use. If you're making like a huge UCS scale Y-Wing, who knows. But yeah, there it is, the Snowspeeder. Very interesting thing there, though I can't say it particularly grabs me. It's a bit small compared to minifig scale. It's not like insanely small. The Snowspeeders are actually pretty tiny ships, but it only seats the one fig. And anyways, this is the actual little speeder bike, the Snowspeeder bike, which we've seen several times from other sets. Super simple build, not bad looking. Honestly, it's not a terrible looking build. The detailing isn't great, obviously, but once again, this is meant to be built extremely simply. And then the same can be said for this little cannon. You see, it's just like that one little plate piece that's angled there. I think, yeah, you can have, I think there was like a gun or something in there before. And this is one of those little disc shooters. If you push it, kind of shoots out. You get 2 of them in this set. So yes, it's a little 4-and-up play set. That's what it is. And it's something that I don't think I would be getting for myself. The figs aren't exclusive, so from a collecting standpoint, it doesn't even have that particular kind of draw. And yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't particularly grab me. Also, it feels a little strange that we're getting an original trilogy themed set for some kids that are 4 and up, like really young builders. Something tells me that the young builders may know more about some of the newer trilogy figures, the newer trilogy stuff, but maybe that's just me. It almost feels like this is a set that like a parent that's familiar with Star Wars that recognizes the Snowspeeder would get for a young kid that isn't like super big into building. So I feel like the demographic is very small for this particular set, and I'm unsure as to how popular this is really going to be in the markets later down the line. But anyways, that's what I think about the Snowspeeder. Now let's segue away from one of the least cool sets to I think one of the more cool sets for the entire wave. This is the Duel on Mustafar. So we've got a new version of Anakin and Obi-Wan, and they're fighting it out, and you have these little pieces here so you can kind of pose them and have them clash lightsaber blades. I really like the fact that you can transform this set, so you can kind of compact it down, and it makes it easier even for them to like duel back and forth, so you can actually play around with the different play style. But you know what, I'll get into the logistics of the build itself. First, let's take a look at the figs. First up is Obi-Wan. He's got totally new prints. He is exclusive to this set, and most likely will remain so considering he's got burn marks and stuff in his robes, and that's pretty specific to this type of scene. This is the one expression on his face here. I honestly don't know if it's the primary one or if this is his primary. I like that. When do you see Obi-Wan with an angry face? You don't until now. So that's great. You have Obi-Wan with like a legit great angry face expression. I'm pretty sure that's the first time we've seen him like this. So that's great. The detailing for the robes is awesome. I like the printing on the legs. Really good looking figure all around, and I have a feeling he will remain exclusive to the set, just like Anakin. Here you can see just the same kinds of burn prints a little bit. It's done in brown because his robes are black, and the belt around his waist is actually very similar to Obi-Wan's in a lot of ways, but you can see just a little bit more detailing in the back with some more burns and or scrapes or tears in the cloth, and his alternate expression is this. Ooh, yeah, angry eyes. Really good. I like that. That's a good freaky face. The classic Sith eyes. I don't know what you call that. I think you call that Sith eyes, where they're kind of yellow and gross, sickly, and yeah, it's good. He's got the older hairpiece, which totally works. It's really windswept and disheveled because this fight is pretty intense, as you can see by the scratches and burns. And now we're back to playing with the build like in the beginning. So they've got these 2 little knobs here where you can grab them and move these back and forth, which is nice. They slide along the track. They look like the little droids too. This is like a little droids with little arms down here, which is kind of funny. And right, they're hovering along the lava. That's basically what we had for this particular fight scene. And look at the color variation. It's great. You got the yellow and the trans orange and the red, and there's some orange plates as well. The lava is extremely vibrant. And let me break this up before showing off this other little play feature. This one I don't think works that well, so
Let's have him leaning forward a little bit more. I think that looks a little bit better. What did I knock off? Something. Oh yeah, the little control pad. It's the little pin pad print there, and then this can also stand back up. But this little play set here, this little play feature, I should say, you slide this around, you have some loose studs, and I think if you hit it hard enough, the idea is that you can have sort of like lava spray up in the background, because that's a lot of it. They're fighting and they're splashing lava, and it's really, really dramatic. I don't really like this play function that much because it's the only loose thing in the set. Everything else is connected and well contained, and in particular that just doesn't look that great. But anyways, the actual play fighting feature is fine. It's nice. It's something that any casual person can walk up to and just start messing around with, which is good. And then this little thing, that's it. Falls over. Totally fine. That's it. You can have this set look pretty good from both angles, which is nice. This is something that you can just kind of move around and it looks, will it stay? Nope. Yeah, so you can fall over, and it's just, you know, something that just happens. What is great about this particular set is that this would look awesome on a shelf. I think it would look good on a desk. It looks good as a simple little display thing. People that don't even know Star Wars, I don't know, particularly well. Anybody I know pretty much knows this scene as being a pretty famous one, so they'll be able to recognize what's going on here. So this is something that I think can actually play quite well and work really well as a display set. You can display it from either side. You can break it apart. Super easy for it to sort of be more compact and come together. This is a little bit better for playing, or I think it's just kind of nicer because it can slide back out. And the only complaint is that there's no high ground, but I don't know, someday they'll probably do that scene with like a build or something and have him, I don't know, I guess falling back into the lava, catching on fire. That's a pretty brutal scene, but this one's one of the more fun and enjoyable and exciting parts of that duel on Mustafar. So I think the price point is great. I think the part count, I actually didn't go over that, so let me say it right now. Set number 75269, 208 parts, sells for 20 bucks. You get 2 exclusive figs that I think both look great, and there's a very high chance that they'll be pretty collectible and remain that way for maybe forever. There's a very slim chance that they're going to be recreating these particular prints in other sets. So in terms of resale value, just specifically for a collector's piece, I think this one will actually do pretty darn well. So I think this is one of the stronger ones in the wave for sure. And that's all I got to say about that. And now we've got a pretty interesting one. This is Obi-Wan's Hut. Obi-Wan's Hut set number 75270, 200 parts exactly, and it comes with 4 minifigs. Sells for $29.99. I'm saying right off the bat that feels a little bit high compared to, you know, it just doesn't quite look like a $30 set, but there definitely are features of this set that are unique and pretty high quality, I would say. But before I jump into the build, let's jump into the minifigs. So first up here is Obi-Wan, because technically he actually counts as an exclusive fig in the terms of what he's been released with. This print is not exclusive for his torso, neither is the expression on his face. So these pieces aren't like special just to this set, but the last time he had this print, he also had a special hood and a cape and stuff, which he does not have this time. So technically, this is an exclusive form of release form. I still think he looks pretty darn good. And what I found in this set, look at his lightsaber blade. It is fogged up. It's not fogged up in the Duel on Mustafar set, so I have a feeling this could have been a mistake, but if I check out, you get a second one of these blades, which is nice. You actually get 2 full lightsaber blades, and you can kind of have it stocked up in the supply crate. Let me pull this out to show you guys. So this blade, too, is a little bit foggy. It's not shiny like your standard 4L bar that you normally get for a lightsaber blade, which I think is kind of interesting. I almost think it looks better in a certain way, but they didn't do it for Duel on Mustafar. Kylo Ren's blade isn't fogged up, so this isn't like a new style. It's just kind of funny that these pieces kind of came a little bit foggy. I'd be curious to know if other people are getting this same type of piece in this set. And now we've got Luke Skywalker in front of us. This is a pretty common version of the guy now. I don't know how much more updating they're going to be doing to this figure at this point, because the way Luke looks right now, I couldn't really imagine too much in terms of improvement for the Tatooine version of him. Here's another repeat of that Tusken Raider that we saw from the Microfighter set earlier. The printing is all the same. He's really just an exact repeat, but technically new for this particular wave. I still think it's an improvement from the last guy, but not by any huge margin. And then I would say pretty appropriate for this kind of set, because R2-D2 is kind of a crux in this scene from episode 4. He comes along for the ride, and the printing for him is the same as it has been for many, many years. This may actually be one of the most commonly remade figures, or certainly droids, but I think droids count as minifigures as well. So I think he's right up there with one of the most commonly reproduced figures, maybe ever, or certainly within the Star Wars line. Now here it is. This is Ben Kenobi's hut. It's a pretty simple build all the way around. I think it would integrate really well with any of the recent Tatooine-based Star Wars sets, which is nice. It's got a nice little domed roof. And then the main feature here, I can go through some of the detailing on the outside later, but this is the main feature that everybody really knows about. Yes, it can open up, and it is really quite accessible. I like that it doesn't open totally flat, but it really, these two corners that come out really make the entire build quite accessible. And let's just take a look at some of the interior detailing. I couldn't tell if this is like a sparring stick or something, like a lightsaber training staff. I couldn't tell. It's something that's clipped onto the side. It could just be a light, but there's that. And then on in here, this is where Luke discovers the old lightsaber. And this piece right here, probably should have shown this off on the rotation thingy. There we go. That printing for the floating training droid looks so good. Dang, does that look good. Also, this will be really cool for like a weird robot head at some point that I know somebody's going to add on to like a custom fig, but that's cool. Also, yeah, that's the lightsaber that I showed you guys earlier. Yeah, it just sticks on into here, jumps on with a little jumper piece, I should say, and yes, jumping down to the middle section. This here, that is the projection, R2-D2's projection of Princess Leia, and the special message that she sends over to Obi-Wan Kenobi. So that's not the same as Palpatine. It's an actual princess piece, and even like that little minifigure sloping piece there in the back is captured quite well. Really, really nice. So, you know, you can set it up with R2 standing there. Obviously, you got blue milk in the corner. And then these are just some little thingy things. I don't know what that is. You can put your little hovering training droid onto this little thing. So it looks like it's hovering in mid-air slightly. And that's about it for the interior. Also, the Tusken Raider stick is in there. It's an extra one, which I think is kind of interesting. When we turn it around, you'll see there's just a little bit more to find. He's cooking a pot of something. I don't know what's in there. It's loose. It's some kind of weird green soup. And when you close it back down, yeah, you can just see a few little bits of antenna, some other little tiny details on the outside, but nothing in any giant way. So, let's see if it'll focus back up again. Is this set particularly groundbreaking in any way? Not really. I do really like that particular piece, the Princess Leia projection. The training droid head with the print is nice. And everything else is just kind of a standard, fun, original trilogy set. Something that can kind of stock up like maybe a larger Tatooine-based diorama. I think this would be really useful. It feels a little bit high on the price point, but I do like that some legit effort had gone into making some new pieces at the end of the day. So it's not too bad, but it's definitely not my favorite from the wave. Now, if I thought last set was just a little bit overpriced, this one is definitely overpriced. It certainly takes the cake, at least for me. It just does not feel like a $30 set. This is Luke Skywalker's Landspeeder set number 75271, 236 parts, comes with 3 figs, the Landspeeder, and this piece of land, I suppose. I'm going to be comparing the speeder with the last one that came out in 2017, which was a 4-fig set for, you know, 20 bucks, so it's $10 less, and it's almost the same kind of set. But before I do the main comparison, let's jump into the figs first. So this is Luke Skywalker again. His print is the same as the last time we saw him in Obi-Wan's hut, just from the previous set. The only difference is that he now has this little poncho piece, which is nice. This is a new piece in terms of like a cloth piece, so it's exclusive just to him, and it probably will remain so. This might end up making him a slightly more collectible figure just because he's got this. It's really, really soft. Softer than your standard cloth cape piece, and softer than the soft cloth cape piece, which is like a different material. And yeah, so his expressions are the same. It would have been cool to get like a knocked out expression for Luke Skywalker, but once again, this is really standard Luke Skywalker face printing. The only difference, once again, is just that little cloth cape. He also came with this rather long battle rifle here as an accessory, which you can clip onto the speeder. And then we got ourselves another Jawa, same kind of Jawa that we've had in the past. Nothing particularly special about him. This is what his little glowing eyes look like. And yeah, there you go. You get a Jawa, and you get yourself a C-3PO. Just like R2, they haven't had to update C-3PO in a very long time, though I don't think he is released quite as often as R2-D2. I actually haven't checked. I'll probably check that at some point and maybe even put it into the screen flashing right now. Which one's more common, this C-3PO or R2-D2? At least their most recent versions. All right, and before I jump into the specific details of this first, I just want to show you this Landspeeder compared to the 2017 Landspeeder, the last time we got this set. So this is the old one. There are some things I like about this more, but generally I do like this one a little bit more. I do think there is an improvement. The one thing I like about this is that you do get these nice long flexi tubes. I think that's an interesting build design, and these are pretty nice to get long light bluish gray flexi tubes, so that as a piece is nice to have. And outside of that, I don't like it as much as this new one. The new one has stickers. I know people don't like stickers, but guess what? This shape makes a lot more sense. It's really rounded and smooth, and I even like that this round brick, this curved brick, comes out just a little bit over the edge of that light, I don't know what type of color that is, like the peachy color for the plate, but really this is a kind of rounded shape, which is more accurate. I think the sticker works positively in its favor, even though most people in general just don't like stickers. I think the seats are better, and the little hidden function back here is nice. You get some binoculars. Let me grab Luke's little thing here. So anyways, what I wanted to say is that this is a better Landspeeder, but on the surface of things, it's hardly, really doesn't look that different. You know, just really, there isn't that much of a difference, I would say, between one and the other. I think this is a little longer. You can see there's like a little bit more detailing between here and there. So yeah, maybe this is like a stud or two longer, this new one. There's this extra little detail. I don't know. The sticker detailing is probably just a little bit different. But yeah, for the most part, it doesn't feel that different. And the last set was $10 less 3 years ago, and it came with one extra fig. So there is just that as a pretty large factor. Granted, this is an extra piece. There's more pieces in this set, and this is the extra bit. If you like land builds, I suppose it's kind of nice to have. You can have your little Jawa hanging out here, and you can clip his blaster gun into the little side nougat piece if you really wanted, but doesn't really, sorry, I'm like looking through the screen as I stud him in, so there he goes. So you can have him just kind of like hiding out, waiting to ambush Luke.
which is generally, you know, what happens here. This is a nice little piece to get. Nothing here is particularly rare. It's just a little extra piece that I think most people don't particularly care about getting. It's just a way to kind of, I don't know, almost an excuse to bump up the price point of the set. That's how it feels to me. This is, I don't know, it's 10 bucks too high or something close to that. But yeah, let me just move on to the next one. Alrighty, we finally started making it to the big ones. This is one of the flagship sets of the wave. This is the Sith TIE Fighter, but everyone's calling it the TIE Dagger. I think that officially is like its name, but the Lego set is the Sith TIE Fighter because I suppose the Sith troopers are flying this around, even though the pilot fig here is kind of just your standard first order TIE pilot. So it does have these nice red highlights. I have to say this does get really high points just because this is one of the truly original designs that came in the wave, not just because it's a different type of ship that we haven't gotten before, but also they've fundamentally approached the actual building of the TIE Fighter cockpit quite differently, even though I know there's some differences between like the arm design and stuff as the original. They just fundamentally approached this design quite different. And I think it's really interesting that they use these quarter-round TIE pieces, these quarter-round pieces for the TIE cockpit, because I know it's been getting used quite a lot in custom builds, and I think it's starting to rub off here for the playsets, which is kind of interesting. But before I jump into this build, which I do like quite a bit, I want to check out the figs first. Alright, here is the first guy, the Knight of Ren. He is exclusive to this set, and I think like all the different Knights of Ren, you only get one per, I think, well, there's one set where you get two, but for the most part, these guys are really hard, and there's usually just one per very large, very difficult set to get. So he's definitely going to be on the list of more collectible figs later down the line. Almost a guarantee that he will remain exclusive to this set, and the detailing for him is pretty darn good. His body is done in the gunmetal, a slightly reflective metallic plastic, which is kind of interesting, and there's lots of interesting prints for him. The back isn't so much, it's kind of cracked and a little bit disheveled, but the front's got an interesting medallion. You can see a dagger that goes from the torso to the leg, which is nice, and he's got a pretty creepy face that you can see. No printing on the back, but a pretty creepy face mask. Kind of looks a little bit like Kylo Ren's face, but not quite the same. So anyways, sure, he's going to be collectible later down the line. And now we are looking at the pilot, the TIE pilot, the Sith TIE pilot, except he looks exactly like any other TIE pilot. We got a version of him, I think, in a Microfighter set not too long ago. He is an exact replica, so there's nothing different about the print on his body. Ooh, let me turn that light down a little bit so he's not popping out too much, but yeah, great prints still for him all around. I do actually like the way these first order pilots look, because the body prints are great, and then the helmet print is also really cool because this part is a little bit squishy, which is kind of fun. So cool looking pilot, but he's not going to be collectible in any way. He's just a nice looking figure. And then we've got Finn. This is not the first time also that we've gotten Finn, except he came out in the Millennium Falcon set last time, so he's probably going to be difficult to get just because he's only appeared in two very large, very expensive sets. But yeah, great looking details. I really like the little color right at the top of that vest is a great way to sort of break up the combination. The print for his legs look great with the Han Solo-esque blaster pistol sort of thing that he's got going on. These are his two expressions. Really good expressions. I just like this figure all around. I think he's just kind of a fun looking guy. There's a lot of nice breakups between, you know, the vest and the nougat and the dark tan and everything. I just think he looks good. Cool looking fig. And now we are back to the TIE Dagger. Let me just go through some of the functions first. You can lift the bottom forward and the top up, which gives you a ton of access. There's a couple of pieces. Let me just take it off here, see if I can get nice and close
There we go, that'll drop away. See if I can get nice and close here to show you guys some of these details. I'm also like holding a light. This little panel print here, that is not a new piece, but the other one on the other side is one of the new pieces. I showed it in one of the Microfighter sets earlier. So there's a little bit of detailing on the inside. There we go. But he can fit inside, no problem. I also like that they decided to use some trans red plates and stuff as detailing on the inside. Seems like a relatively common technique now amongst both sets and custom builders who like to build TIE fighters. Nice print there in the front. Really like the red windscreen piece. And then jumping this down, that folds down quite nicely. And when you fold the back, it actually folds these two engine piece covers in front a little bit, which is kind of interesting. These are actually, when I'm looking at it, they're always pointing down ever so slightly. Somebody point out to me if I did that wrong, or if that's just how it is. See how this isn't like totally flush with the back? The back engines are always pointing down a little bit. So when you lift this up, it's nice how that function works, because then you can really get into the back. You close it, and then you have to independently push it back up, but it never actually goes all the way back up. I do think that is a little bit weird. I don't know if I did it wrong or if that's just the way the set is supposed to be. Somebody let me know in the comments below. I like that this piece now is a lot more common. It only came out on the UCS Star Destroyer recently, but it's come out in this set and one other from this wave, so that part is great. It's basically the BB-8 head, but done in just regular light bluish gray. We've got this little trans 1x4 tile on this part of the wing and on the same part of the other side. I don't know what it's for, but I can appreciate getting a trans 1x4 for sure. And then, boom. I really like the pieces that were used for this set here. You look at this. That is a brand new wing wedge plate piece, and it's meant to match up with this relatively new, what is it, 4x6? Yeah, a 4x6 wing plate as well. They've done it also in red, you can see. And the original version of this angle actually came out as the 2x2, which has been around for a couple of years now. So now we've got it in a variety of different sizes and lengths, and I'm really looking forward to getting a bunch more in a bunch of new colors. This is a great way to get a lot of these pieces onto the market for red and black, but once again, we're going to want them in gray, white, all the primary colors, and everything else, because I think they're going to be super, super nice to build with in the later years to come. But that'll take quite a while, I think, for these new parts to make it onto the BrickLink market later down the line. This is what the stand looks like. And if you couldn't see before, it basically just sticks in just like this, and it just kind of keeps this whole thing looking nice in the front. So in terms of originality and some building techniques that I think were pretty nice, I like the way the wings attached there. This has to get some decently high marks just on pure aesthetics. There's a few things I didn't point out. You can shoot out the little spring-loaded shots on either side by pushing this piece in. It's a hidden trigger, which is good. Not the biggest fan, I would say, when it comes to having this little bit of rigid blocky building that you can see in between these layers. I don't think that looks particularly great, but for the most part, I think this works pretty well because they've changed up the way the wings, the arms to the wings work out. They're a little bit flatter, and it kind of ultimately changes the shape a little bit of that baseline TIE design. So for the most part, I think this is actually a pretty well built set. I like the pieces included. The figs aren't bad, but once again, this is a $79.99 or $80 set, 470 pieces, set number 75272. It doesn't feel like an $80 set, but once again, I think just in general, the price point, perhaps for IPs or the Star Wars IP, might just be permanently going up. So I don't know if I'm going to be complaining a bunch about price for this entire wave, but I will say that, yeah, it just, visually, it still doesn't feel quite like an $80 set. Still a quality build. The figs are nice. I like the figs. and I like the pieces, but once again, it does feel just a little bit high. And all right, now we've made it to the final set. This has been a very interesting experience for me to just go through and review everything pretty much back to back. I definitely took a couple of breaks here and there, but this is Poe Dameron's X-Wing, set number 75273, 761 parts, and it comes with 3 figs, 2 of which are exclusive. I know a lot of people, like a lot of people, have been saying, and I have been saying, that yes, it feels a little bit overpriced, like several of the sets in this wave, and I'll get to the general build style. I actually really like the build style of this particular X-Wing. It's not that different from other iterations that we've gotten recently for Poe's Resistance X-Wing, but I'll get into that more in detail. As always, let's check out the figs first. By far, Jana is the coolest figure in this set. She has some amazing printing. Look at that printing on the arm. It's really cool. It's kind of like a band, but wrapped to it is some type of technical device that maybe, who knows, helps her communicate, helps her shoot. This hairpiece is awesome. It's got these cool goggles that are up at the top, and these are her 2 expressions. I don't know if these are unique just to her. I'd have to check out the database a little bit to see if this is unique just to her, but I wouldn't be surprised. They're pretty boilerplate expressions at the end of the day, but yeah, all in all, really liking the detail here. Let's check out what it looks like on the back. It looks like the clothes here are somewhat patchwork or a bit rough, maybe even animal skins. I can't quite tell. They've been stitched together several times. The straps also look kind of furry or feathery. It's really hard to tell. Interesting detailing all around, though. All right, this is the final Knight of Ren. I don't know anything about these knights. Remember, I haven't seen the movie as of the making of this video, though it's starting to pop up in theaters now around the world, so some people are starting to see it. Really cool looking guy. I think he's the coolest looking knight in my personal opinion. Once again, no face. Interesting print, though, for the kind of robe that he's wearing. It looks a little bit more high class than some of the other guys, a little bit less war-oriented. It doesn't feel like battle armor of any kind. This is an interesting brick-built weapon as well, and I have a feeling, like the rest of the knights, this is going to be a very expensive and difficult figure to get your hands on in the aftermarket. This is not the first Poe Dameron that we've gotten before, but I do think this is still one of the best helmet molds. The visor is just a little bit thinner than when they tried to put it onto those X-Wing helmets a year or 2 ago, and the printing is just great all around. Poe's got a couple of nice expressions. He's not exclusive to this set, just nice expressions all around. He's a pretty good looking fig, and he comes with a nice light blaster pistol. And there's another one of these in this set. Maybe he goes with the Knight of Ren, I'm not sure. Now, I totally forgot there's technically 4 figs. Droids count as figs at the end of the day, and this is another R2-D2. He's the same as the other ones that we saw in the other reviews. So there he is. He's here instead of BB-8, which is kind of interesting. Once again, haven't seen the movie yet, so I suppose that's a development from the film. And now let's actually get into this set. We have, I think, what is a pretty good color combination for this thing. All in all, I think the white and orange actually feeds off pretty well with tiny little light blue accents. It's all in all, I think, a pretty good looking fighter when it comes to the color combination. And yeah, I would say the number one thing that really pops out and makes this thing a little bit more special is this new piece right here. This is a brand new piece. What is that, a 3x3 no studded round brick curve? I don't know how they're going to classify it necessarily, but it definitely completes that rounded engine look, which is the original aesthetic that they were going for when they started copying from the concept art for original episode 7 when they were developing this X-Wing. So I do think this piece is certainly a better choice than the previous ones that they were using. I'll actually bring out the set number 75149 X-Wing in a little bit, but this function is pretty much the same as the last couple of versions of this. Relatively similar build style. It is different with this different color combination. It's such a stark color cutoff here, as opposed to the black and orange or the red the blue and gray that came out before. There was like different colors kind of streaking along here, but now the wing is relatively simple and smooth. So generally I do like the overall aesthetic differences. We've got a couple of new pieces here in orange, which is nice. This little sloped bit with which curves and cuts off. I don't think that part came out in orange, so yeah, but ultimately this is pretty... Whoa, I just shot the 2 shots off when I put it down. That was my bad. But also, that brings me over to something that I don't think is quite as good. You can see a spring-loaded shot at the bottom there, spring-loaded shot at the bottom there. I just shot them away. And the other 2 versions of this X-Wing had 4. It makes sense. There's 4 S-foils, or at least 2 halves. So, yeah. I don't know why they didn't have 4 stud shooters. They had them in the last 2 versions of the Resistance X-Wing. They still have... That's my little minifigure spinner thing. They still have these little stud guns on either side, so you can pinch it and shoot these little things out if you wanted to. But I'm not really a big fan of those, nor do I care, but I do think it's kind of interesting. It is a playset, and I don't know why they would take the firepower down to half with this latest version. I don't think it really pulls away from the look. Maybe they just liked this nice white, smooth, thin idea on the top, and they're like, oh, well, it looks a little bit better from the main angle that you're usually looking at it from, and then these ones that pop out a little bit more, they don't really have to hide them so much, and so they just didn't care, and they just, I don't know. I personally, I think if you're gonna have them, just have them. If you're not gonna have them, don't have them. But it feels a little bit funny. I would have definitely preferred to have 4 spring-loaded shots, just because, you know, I think kids would definitely prefer 4. It just makes sense. 4 wings, 4 shots. Of course. Anyway, so I do think that was kind of a weird design choice that they made. It's kind of funny that his flight suit isn't brighter than the bright orange that we get for the primary color here on the X-Wing fighter. So he's a little bit darker than the rest there. But yeah, ooh, I pushed him down. Boom, there he goes. Fits in the cockpit nice and easily. And then if you want to see what it looks like on the inside, he does have a little print in there. Let me actually cut it, bring it out. I believe that is a new print. It's not on a cheese wedge of any kind. It's just a 1x2 tile. Looks good. And in case you wanted to see what the landing gear looked like on the bottom, it is the same, once again, as the previous versions of the X-Wing. That little thing can fold in the front, and then this piece is what naturally closes the wings. When it's open in attack position, you can kind of just like rest it down, and then you push it and the whole thing kind of just snaps closed. Let me get the previous version of this thing. This one here, I think from 2017, is in so many ways nearly identical to this latest version. You'll notice definitely the biggest difference is the rounded shape that we have for the wings. So this is kind of old wheel well pieces that, you know, they straighten out, and it's kind of more of an oval shape. And even these sloped pieces are a bit more round when you look a bit further back, but it just doesn't get close. It simply doesn't get nearly as close as to a perfect circle, which is really what it's supposed to look like on the inside here. So I think just from a distance, this by far just captures that shape a lot better. And then also maybe one of the other bigger primary differences is that the wing here at the top is 2 plates thick on either side, because you wanted to have a bit of the gray and a bit of the blue. And the same idea goes for the black and orange for the 2015 X-Wing also. Here it is thinner along the top. And you can also see a little bit more just with these like inverted slope pieces and stuff. There's slight differences, but for the most part, this is bigger and thicker on the top, while this is a little bit thinner down. And I'm gonna do some picture overlays. The first one is gonna be for this 2017 one. You'll notice that there's a bigger land build on the outside, same amount of figs, and $10 less than what they're asking for now. 2015 also had a larger bit of building. Personally, I preferred having some transport stuff and an extra ammo crate. And once again, the same number of figs and $10 less on the asking price. So this technically has a slightly higher part count, because even though there aren't extra builds on the outside, minus this little
step ladder, which is really basic. I think it's just 4 little pieces that lets you get up into the cockpit. Aside from this little build, it looks like a smaller set than the previous ones, and it is $10 more. So visually, there's literally no way you can spin it. This just is always going to feel more expensive because and just, you know, like the parts, maybe even the ABS, the amount of plastic that you get in this set, the amount of production that goes into it, isn't going to be, or is going to be just as much or more as previous sets, so maybe it does need to go up in price a little bit. It's just never going to look that way to the standard consumer, and it totally makes sense. $90 for this set. And yeah, for a lot of people, that's just going to be a huge pill to swallow. So I'm actually kind of curious because I do think this is a pretty good build. I do like the color combination. This is a cool piece, and I am pretty much rock solid on this getting used for more sets in the future. So I'm kind of stoked because I think it's a great detailing piece that I know a lot of builders will be very, very glad to get their hands on. So I would like to know what you guys think about this set because I have been kind of rattling off in general about higher pricing, and but I do think the quality is generally there. The one major thing in terms of build that I'm not a big fan of is that they should have just kept those 4 spring-loaded shooters on all 4 of the wings, because remember, at the end of the day, if you don't like it, they're really, really easy to just take off. And all right, here are all the sets together again after having reviewed them, and they haven't changed their positions in any way since I showed you these in the intro. Okay, I'm gonna go through the baseline conclusions for myself. I've split all 11 sets up into 3 tiers of best, like my most favorite, to ones that I think are still all right, to ones that I probably would skip over. Basically, there's a few exceptions to those rules, but let me start to my 3 favorite sets, the ones that I absolutely would get from this wave no matter what, and I already am getting a second one of the Mandalorian Battle Pack, and I think probably a second one of the Sith Trooper Battle Pack as well. So these two, the 2 Battle Packs, I think are great. I think they did a pretty darn good job with them this year. They're in my top tier, along with the Duel on Mustafar set. I just think that it works pretty well as a play set. It works great as a display set. And both of the figures are exclusive, and I have a very, very good feeling that they will remain exclusive. Also, it's the first time they've revisited this pretty iconic duel in a super long time in LEGO. It's pretty small, but I don't think it really needed to be much bigger than what it was. It's got a lot of play features. Yes, Duel on Mustafar is in the top tier along with the 2 battle packs. Those ones I would put right at the top for me. And then in the middle, actually before I get to the middle ones, let me just say that the Microfighters, all good quality. Zori Bliss and the new Kylo Ren fig, great way to get a cheaper version of both of these. Pretty darn good looking minifigs. The builds for them are great. I like both of these guys. The Bantha I actually really like. I know some people aren't really down with the way it looks. T16 Skyhopper isn't bad. That is a new figure for the pilot. Generally speaking, this isn't really in the tier list at all, just because I know some people that are into the Microfighters, or just aren't into the Microfighters as much, because they're kind of like the funny, cutesy, chibi builds that don't necessarily integrate with some of the other sets that people might be making dioramas from or integrating into larger dioramas. So I kind of keep the Microfighters in their own little category, but for the most part, pretty solid. I would say the Microfighters, any 3 of these sets are pretty much worth your while. They didn't do any price hikes for them. They've been the same prices, I think, since they came out. Don't quote me on that. But anyways, yeah, so Microfighters, they're not in the tiers at all, but I do think they are a pretty good deal. So anyway, so tier 1 is the 2 battle packs plus Duel on Mustafar. Tier 2, I would say, are the 3 at the top. So we have Obi-Wan's hut, the Sith TIE Fighter, this TIE Dagger officially, and Poe's X-Wing again. There's exclusive, really nice exclusive figs for the 2 really big ones, or just, I mean, they got the Knights of Ren. They're cool, they're mysterious, they're very likely to remain exclusive and be collectible. The whole set of them will be very collectible, I am sure, in the aftermarket. And we actually got a decent amount of new pieces in terms of minifig stuff. The training droid, the projection for Princess Leia is great. Technically, Obi-Wan is that version of him, hasn't been released in that way. And they also just haven't done Obi-Wan's hut before, so it's kind of nice that we get that. I appreciate just like that it's a classic set, but it's also just a slightly new approach to a classic set. This one's pretty iconic with the tons of new wing wedge plate pieces. Some are just add-ons to wedge plates, wing wedge plates that we've already gotten before, but they're still relatively new. And then we have the really pointy one that I was showing off in that review, which is great. So I think that's iconic just for an introduction to a whole new wave, hopefully a whole new wave of getting a lot of those wing wedge plate pieces in multiple different colors, because I have a feeling they're going to be super popular with custom builders. This outline piece for the engine is new. I like that a lot. But I have to say, both of the big sets have what feel like a $10 price hike, which brings it back for me, because we've gotten this set before very recently, where it was $10 less. It had the same or more minifigs. There's only this one little tiny bit, this little ladder that leads up, and that's it, because the particular X-Wing here with the color combination requires a lot more pieces. It makes the set feel smaller, even though in terms of parts it actually isn't. So visually and just with minifigure wise, this does feel like it's a price hike. This one also feels a little bit like a price hike, though slightly less so. But it still kind of feels that way when you're looking at the two really big sets. They feel like they're pushed up ahead by an extra 10 bucks or so. So that's why I brought them into the tier 2 list for me, even though we've got some good figs, some great new pieces, but it just feels like they're reaching a little bit with the price. Okay, now I've talked about well, you actually kind of know what's left. There's only 2 that are left, and this is my bottom tier. These are the ones that if we weren't crazy huge collectors here in the studio trying to get every single LEGO Star Wars minifigure ever made, we might skip over. So that would be the 4 and up set for basically the Junior's Snowspeeder set and Luke's Landspeeder. So Luke's Landspeeder it feels like it's at least $5 too high for what we get, and it's not really that different from the previous Landspeeder. I wouldn't fault anybody for liking the previous version of the Landspeeder more than this one. I do definitely see why they've changed up this design a little bit, and in certain ways I think there are definitely improvements, though not in any giant significant way. LEGO at the end of the day I think just wants to have a classic set on the shelves. Luke's Landspeeder probably will never die as a set. I think they're just going to keep on recreating it, and not all of them can be winners, and in this particular case, I definitely don't think it is. Definitely feels a little bit too expensive. Not a big fan of just the land builds, the extra land builds in general. I do like the poncho for Luke. That is, I think, the only thing that I really like about this set is the poncho. The poncho is cool for him. And the build isn't terrible for the Landspeeder, it's just not better in any great way. Now this, of course, isn't really marketed for me, and for most people, I think, watching the video. And yeah, it's the Snowspeeder, interesting piece that makes up the body. It simply isn't, you know, it's expensive. Wedge Antilles is cool that we get a modern version of him. Assault on Hoth wasn't the most popular set, but this set isn't actually that cheap, so I don't know how much you're going to be saving if you want to get Wedge Antilles. Hopefully his price just goes down in the aftermarkets later. Right now, that's a $12 figure in the US if you wanted to get him brand new. I have a feeling that'll go down. But yeah, for the most part, just there isn't a whole lot that interests me with the really young Snowspeeder set, and I don't know how many people, what the demographic that will really be interested in an original trilogy kids set, considering a lot of the younger kids might be into maybe some of the other movies. Alright, so that is my basic breakdown. For the most part, I'm happy with the wave. In general, the minifigure game across the board is very strong for this one, and I am just kind of curious, of course, to see the new stuff that comes later down the line. So anyways, I hope you guys found this video interesting or helpful for you guys if you're thinking about getting some of these sets. once January comes around, or some of them are obviously out before then. And anyways, thanks a lot for watching, everybody. If you enjoy our content, you can always like or subscribe, and we'll see you next time at BrickVault.